Hey, welcome to All Things Social Security. You're about to see a question from a live viewer and my response, and it may or may not have an attached additional set of information for you, but you'll see a little invitation to that if that's the case. If what you're looking for is representation and you want us to take a look at your claim, please go to joydisability.com and look in your upper left-hand corner for the link for the free SSD evaluation, and we will take care of that for you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Enjoy the video. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Stephanie Joy with All Things Social Security and the law practice of Joy Disability, exclusively Social Security Disability and SSI medical claims. Okay, so there was some questions about how the judge has to consider absenteeism. We also refer to off-task time, usually in the same bucket when we talk about that. So here was a question from somebody, and it was about the vocational expert testimony during hearing. The questioner says, the VE came up with 3 jobs I could do with the RFC provided. And as you might know, the ALJ is going to provide a hypothetical that includes whatever RFC he decides to include in it. A hypothetical person is who he's talking about, and the questions about what jobs could this person do goes to the VE. The judge asked the VE. Okay, so the VE, which is vocational expert, was asked if these jobs would allow more than 1 absence per month. And the VE said no. And that would be a typically expected answer by an ALJ, that a VE would say, no, generally not more than 1 absence a month, the person's going to get fired, particularly if they haven't been there for 20 years, as a trusted employee. So the question was, is the ALJ required to include absenteeism, whether to support or reject that VE statement in his written decision? Not necessarily, I'm going to say. If there is evidence in your medical file about absenteeism, then yeah, he'd have to probably explain how he disregarded it or how he embraced it because he found it credible under your whole evidentiary, the totality of it. But short of that, no, I do not think he would have to address it, because if he doesn't find evidence to find it there, just like there's 5 million other things he might not find evidence about, he doesn't have to list everything he didn't find. I will say this, though, you'd like to think that if the judge asks about absenteeism and it isn't coming from your side, that he is finding that there might be, when he goes more thoroughly through the record, he might find that absenteeism is a definite and that it would be more than a month, but 1 a month. That said, I have seen many, many times where a judge gives all these hypotheticals for those jobs, then he throws in the last one and says, okay, assuming those jobs, if the person was going to be out more than 1 day a month, would they be able to do those jobs? And of course, the VE says no. But then the judge doesn't make the finding that you fit the last hypothetical where there would be absenteeism. Now, let's say he denies you, but there's lots of proofs, doesn't mean they're conclusory, but evidence in the file about absenteeism. It could be that A, you have very severe impairments that would typically, often with many patients, cause them to not be able to go to work certain days a month. Even if it's not in your expressly in your medical evidence, if the judge finds that to be something to be expected, he might rely on it. But let's say there was statements that you made to your doctor periodically, like, my gosh, they're going to fire me, doctor. Like, this is before your alleged onset date, maybe, historical records where you're saying, I missed 3 days last month. It wasn't good. I just, for whatever the medical problem was. And if you articulated it with your doctors, maybe if you had a therapist, whoever, ideally more than 1 doctor it gets mentioned to, then there is kind of indication of lost days. Granted, they're not medical findings because it's coming out of your mouth, but it's historical. And things that are stated back in real time before you have litigation or anything are way more, generally speaking, credible and not thought to be contrived, like it would be if you were just on the stand suddenly saying out of the blue, yeah, and I was really having a lot of absenteeism and all that, and you have no proof. I will say, though, just to throw this in there, guys, one way to prove that you were starting to have bad absenteeism is your pay stubs. You can get usually from your employer uh, your pay stubs that would show sick day, sick day, sick day, paid or unpaid, and you could show, look at 6 days a month she kept missing. 2 days here, 1 day here, about three. Still bad. Just another way you can kind of dig and try to find the evidence that would help support your claim that you were suffering absenteeism already, and obviously it would still ensue because you're not any better than you were. You're probably even worse. So, is the judge, again, going back to ALJ, required to include absenteeism, other to support or reject? I would say no. However, if there's evidence of it and he doesn't address it, and the evidence is enough that it could make a decision, a difference in the case finding, I think that would be a point of appeal if he denied after not including it when there's tons of evidence that you would be absent or you were absent, like all that stuff combined, all the little crumbs of absenteeism evidence coming into play. So not necessarily do they have to talk about it. If the evidence is there, they're probably supposed to explain why they reject it or accept it. And certainly if they are going to say that you would be absent, in order to not get overturned when they award you by the higher ups that do the auditing, he will be definitely explaining it. If that's going to be the basis of his award, that's a tough, they don't like to do that. They prefer to get it on RFC in terms of exertional and solid. It could be non-exertional and or manipulative postural, other limitations that are medically documented versus the more nebulous absenteeism conjecture. But it's still something that could be really important, and we use it in almost every case. Doesn't mean it holds the water, but we always have it there in case we have to appeal. The claimant even testified to absenteeism, and the judge didn't address it, didn't reject it, didn't accept it, but denied without explaining that. So, and that was when a VE said that if there was absenteeism, there would be no jobs, yet the judge didn't determine whether there would be sufficient absenteeism to warrant no jobs. Anyway, it's kind of how you go roundabout. Sometimes you have to get things on appeal, but it's best to always put them in if that's going to be needed, if you can, at hearing. You know, if the judge doesn't ask about absenteeism, it can be helpful for the claimant or their attorney too. All righty. Okay, that was a great question. And you know something? I just found this question. I don't even know how to find half of the questions that come up in weird spots on the YouTube channel, not in my typical place where I look. So anyway, I wanted to answer it. And that was from Victory Weber. So hopefully Victory will see this. I will try to post it there as well under the question, if I can find out where to do that. All right, guys. Have a great week. God bless.